agree entirely that we should be concerned with justice today. I think we agree entirely that there are problems with the old Boy Scout, Girl Scout duality. I think where we start to disagree is when we talk about the Boy Scouts making this action to make themselves look more inclusive while still being an organization called the Boy Scouts of America that teaches traditionally male activities as if that's what it means to be male, and that's what it means to be female, and as if those things have any meaning in our society today. So today, I want to take a deontological approach to this issue rather than a utilitarian one. And I want to talk about why it is that by having a corrupt and problematic or a problematic organization make these otherwise, and I agree, somewhat good changes is always going to end badly, because we can't stand for these bad actors even if they're doing good things. So I'm going to talk about why the Boy Scouts are problematic. Haley's going to go over why giving them credit, calling these actions ethical is dangerous. Henry's going to go over why this has impacts to girls that are also on utilitarianism, hoping to win on util as well, and finally Joel will sum us up. So talking about the Boy Scouts, so the organization of the Boy Scouts is problematic. I think we can all agree about that. First of all, as I mentioned, the activities you do in the Boy Scout reaffirm gender binaries. Even if you're a girl doing the Boy Scouts, it's still called the Boy Scouts, and there you learn to like hunt and fish and camp. While in the Girl Scouts, you're learning how to cook and sell cookies and things, and we think that's really, really bad. And we will draw upon the sort of the modern philosophy of thinking about the way our language affects things. And as long as the Boy Scouts are called the Boy Scouts, and as long as the Girl Scouts are called the Girl Scouts, we're having huge problems. They're still called the Boy Scouts here. Not only is it enforcing a gender binary, but it's enforcing a gender duality at all. It's inherently trans exclusive, it's inherently hateful to those who identify otherwise, and as long as we have these as pillars of our community, things we respect, organizations that we value, we're saying that we value those ideas as well, and we don't reject them, when instead we have to reject them entirely. So then we'll go on to Haley to talk about why making changes without fixing the problem is so dangerous.
I think it's important to recognize that we're talking mostly about children and how we affect children. And we think it's important to understand that the way you shape a society is by the values that you impart on the children, on the next generation. We think the particular issue here is that we agree with the proposition that we need a utilitarian benefit, but we don't think this is how we shape a better society. We think that what this is actually going to give is a kind of masking. Instead of actually fixing some of the root problems within the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, you now create a dichotomy of, well, if you don't like how Girl Scouts is currently operating, just go join the Boy Scouts since they'll accept you now, instead of trying to confront what these root issues actually are. But we think, secondly, we think that what we need to do is really just take to heart and be principled about this idea that there should be no differences in sex. There should be no differences in how we raise male or female children. But we think that in order to do that, we cannot continue to have gendered institutions. We need new institutions, and we need to raise and rebuild. We think that's the only way in which we are able to access this corrective justice. You can't shift to be more inclusive whenever it is simply virtue signaling for the sake of virtue signaling. Whenever we're talking about an organization that actively denies openly homosexual scouts to join or participate in their activities, we don't think we're actually confronting what the problems are within these organizations, but simply just being able to have a little bit better, like I don't know, woke cred, or like be viewed more positively in our society without actually talking about those deeper societal harms.
And then I really appreciated what the proposition said at the end of their last speech, that they believe in justice as fairness. And what we have to reckon with is the fact that we live in a society today in which most of the most fundamental aspects of our society are already geared towards a culture which favors things like strength and masculinity. And we think that the Boy Scouts, more than anything else, exemplifies this. And we will be forcing girls who join this organization into buying into those narratives, which are towards their own detriment. Justice as fairness does not say girls should have to play in the same rugby field as men, like we did frequently in Boy Scouts. We don't think that is equality, and we think that in the long term will subvert the goals of trying to move towards equality on their side. We think that forcing the idea that they should ever be, engaging in these highly masculine sports in the first place is unnecessary.
So in conclusion, we're going to pose the question on whether or not it was ethical for the Boy Scouts to include girls as scouts. And even though we get some marginal benefits of inclusion, we think that inclusion is vastly outweighed by reaffirming gender biases, shaping society, and the harm that this has on the girls regardless.
Okay, very good.
So
Team Consortium, you have 1 minute to confer.